Don't chase those new patients away. The lifeblood of every practice is new patients. If I could only get them in the first time, is the most common complaint I hear from struggling doctors in the field. Certainly we all realize that the first years of practice are often difficult, and frequently some means of stimulation is needed in the form of advertising, public relations, etc. However, to continue forever to rely on gimmicks, promotion schemes, and come-on ideas will tend to further set the patterns for the necessity of the same on a continuous basis. Now, we want to try to stimulate referrals and do the things that will not chase those new patients away. It has been my experience and observation that some advertising doctors, and I've been a very big advertising doctor in past years, as some of you know, because we spent well over $750,000 in advertising during the times we were building our 18 multiple offices in a period of less than 2 years. But it has been our experience and observation that some advertising doctors get most of their new patients from advertising means, promotional methods, and come-on ideas, as I say, even though there are many advertising doctors who render just as good or even better service than some I know who try to depend entirely upon referrals. The big shortcomings of advertising is that we begin to rely on the ads rather than personal LSMFT or loving service by first technique and good, wholesome, personalized chiropractic service to get real good results and therefore new patients, and thus we reduce our sincere service to each and every patient. To those who advertise, may I urge you with all that is within me not to make this mistake. Accept and serve each patient as if you must get them well in order to get new patients. For in the long run, brown baggers, you will have to produce the goods, else you'll soon be found out about, for the word gets around any and all neighborhoods, even though that neighborhood might be New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, or London, England. The word gets around regardless of how much advertising you might do. Several years ago, when one of our leading states' board of examiners put a clamp on big-scale advertising, dozens of doctors thought the world had come to an end. Letters came flooding into my office saying, "What are we going to do? Our incomes have dropped off 60%. We can't get the new ones in the office, and we're worried." Within a short distance of one of the biggest complainers, I knew a D.C. who handled over 60 patients per day and had to limit his practice because of overwork. He had not spent a nickel on advertising or promotion in years. Why? This situation doesn't just happen. There must be a reason why one group of doctors can be busy on the referrals and another group can't. I am convinced, brown baggers, that a referral consciousness will stimulate one's ability to generate methods of getting referrals from patients under treatment. On the other hand, if one depends strictly on promotional gimmicks, he will unconsciously neglect the little important referral-getting ideas that work for him, and many of which are on these records. Action must be taken in the right direction to develop a strong referral practice, and the amazing thing is that the cost is negligible. Here are some of the keys I found. Discuss other cases or hypothetical cases with your patients without mentioning names or personalities. Probe for the key that might unlock the door to sending a friend. Question them about their family, Uncle John, Grandma, and neighbors. Mrs. Jones, I had a woman in yesterday who had suffered for 6 months as the result of a whiplash neck injury because nobody took the time to tell her about chiropractic. Mr. Smith, you know it disturbs me seriously when I see cases of low back pain such as yours lose time from work because they were not familiar with the marvelous results obtained under modern chiropractic care. Expect referrals, concentrate on referrals, depend on referrals. Tell your patients that you appreciate their efforts to advance the knowledge of chiropractic to the masses and to the people that they associate with every day. Let them know that they can do more with a few words than you can by shouting from the housetops. People like to feel of service and enjoy feeling that they have contributed to some worthwhile cause. No doubt you have had a patient call you on the phone from time to time to tell you that a Mrs. Johnson will be in for an examination and adjustments. A desire for importance. Take advantage of this. It will pay dividends to your profession and to you, brown bagger. Don't chase those new patients away. Attract them in, and don't fail to realize that you must develop a mental attitude of expecting referrals. When this thought is recorded into a brain pattern, the action follows, and all the referral-getting ideas you have been exposed to in the past, such as at the seminar, and on these records will come to the surface, and you will put them into practice as a matter of routine. It's like the salesman motto, if you make enough calls, you're bound to make some sales. Try it, brown baggers. It works. How to save those lost appointments. If you charge $4 an office call, brown baggers, and work an average of 250 days a year, one missed or broken appointment a day costs you $1,000 a year. Double that, and it reduces your income $2,000 per year. This amounts to $166.67 per month. That would pay the rent, perhaps receptionist's salary, make the monthly payments on a new clinic building, or perhaps used as advertising could even double your yearly income. This problem is one of the major ones we've discovered through the years that makes a doctor lose money by not making it. Therefore, in many instances, he does not realize that he's missing many ways to prevent lost appointments. Usually, in our offices, we are so close to the forest we cannot see it for the trees. I remember this experience happened to us about methods of saving lost appointments among our 18 chiropractic clinics. This reminds me, in a way, of the farmer who said he lost $5,000 one day. Asked how, he remarked, the price of hogs went up $10 a head, and I didn't have a one. Dozens of times I've checked office records throughout North America and found literally hundreds of broken or missed appointments, which accounted for much lower income. Of course, there is no hard and fast rule that will eliminate this condition completely, but certainly putting our best foot forward by proper procedure will keep it to a very bare minimum. The following approaches have proved very helpful to many. The patient should be phoned within an hour after appointment time. The sooner the better. You may think they might feel you're anxious. They will, if you are holding anxiety in your mind rather than sincere service to the patient. Instead, think sincere interest for the patient. Then the feeling the patient receives will be one of sincere interest for them. Your very words, your very attitude, and your very expressions will carry this sincere feeling and interest. When the patient answers the phone, say something like, "Good morning, Mrs. Jones. This is Mrs. Smith at Dr. Parker's office. We missed you this morning at 11 at your appointment and knew something unforeseen must have happened. Dr. Parker asked me to call you quickly and remake an appointment with you for this afternoon. Or would in the morning be better?" You see, you want to be sure and give 2 times, something or something, not something or nothing again. If in the ensuing conversation the patient says she feels fine and doesn't think she needs to come in or continue treatments, then you say something like, "Fine, wonderful. Dr. Parker will be very happy about your progress, for that is what he has been trying to do for you. However, Mrs. Jones, further adjustments might be necessary to keep you feeling good and to prevent recurrence of your trouble, which I'm sure you, just like Dr. Parker, certainly don't want. Before you stop treatments, don't you think you should talk to Dr. Parker about it?" Don't wait for an answer. Continue on and say, "He could see you at 3 this afternoon or 10 in the morning. Wouldn't you think it best to come in and discuss it with Dr. Parker at one of these times?" If even after this proper procedure the patient does not respond favorably, you might add, "Well, Mrs. Jones, we are happy you are feeling so wonderful, and I'll give your message to Dr. Parker." Incidentally, never just say the doctor, but continue on by saying, "I know he'll be real happy, too, that you are feeling so good that you don't think you need any more treatments. Since he didn't expect permanent results to be so rapid, he may want to call you to get more particulars about your fine response." And when the doctor makes the call back, which should be before the end of that same day, he may use something like the following: "Hello, Miss Jones, this is Dr. Parker speaking. Miss Smith tells me you're feeling real good, and I want to tell you how happy we are for you. Mrs. Jones, many of our patients experience immediate results, say relief if the patient was in pain, much as you have. However, I feel it is my responsibility to tell you that it is usually temporary, and if you stop adjustments before correction has been made, we both might be very sorry. In your case," and now you might describe some of her conditions, "it requires a longer period of correction and care for maximum permanent benefits. It's like your car running out of gas at the bottom of the hill, Mrs. Jones. Someone comes along and starts to push your car to the next station over the hill. As you cruise up the hill, you might feel all is well, but if the car stopped pushing, you'd eventually come to a standstill and then start rolling back, wouldn't you? Well, that's the way it is with conditions such as yours. You stop now, and you will surely follow the path of most of the others who have stopped too soon and go back down the hill to disease. Then it might not be so easy to make up for lost time, or, like the car out of gas, to find someone else who will stop and render aid. If our examination findings and treatments produce these quick and excellent results, Mrs. Jones, then of course you and I are wise enough to realize that this same knowledge that we have that tells us of how many adjustments should be given for permanent benefit over what period of time should be followed. Mrs. Jones, we will not keep you longer than we feel necessary. You can depend on that, for we enjoy dismissing patients when corrections have been made. But sooner or later, you're going to require additional treatments. The sooner it is, the fewer treatments will be required, as you can well understand. And you remember we were going to re-x-ray you at the end of the second month, or the 20th adjustment, if that was the case. And since that is only a couple of weeks away, don't you think you should reconsider and continue your adjustments by coming in either this afternoon or in the morning? You see, brown baggers, you pose the question after you've given this little sales talk. Should the patient insist on discontinuing treatments, then close the conversation with a good feeling by saying, "Well, Mrs. Jones, it has been a pleasure to have you as a patient, and I hope that you are over the hill, so to speak. However, if your old condition does begin to reappear or any new trouble ever develops, please, for your sake, don't delay in getting back quickly, for delay allows any disease to grow worse. And especially in your case, when insufficient therapy has thus far been rendered, you want to come back as quickly as possible upon the first sign of a reoccurrence of this condition. We do appreciate you especially for your promptness in fulfilling your previous appointments, Mrs. Jones, and I know your circle of friends will prove to be good patients like yourself. So please know we will welcome any of them that might have some condition that has resisted their efforts to cure it. On the original call, either by the doctor or the receptionist, should the patient express dissatisfaction or discouragement, the conversation should be something like this: "Mrs. Jones, we can appreciate your patience, and we are very sorry that you are one of those rare cases that do not respond as readily as we all would like. I can certainly sympathize with your discouragement and frankly can't say I blame you one bit. I wouldn't be taking the time to further discuss your condition with you were it not for the evidence we found in your examination, which showed that you will begin to respond when this cause we found has been corrected for a period long enough to allow nature to begin to heal. It's similar to baking a cake, Mrs. Brown. As you put ingredients together, it's almost impossible to determine any results of ultimately getting the cake baked until it begins to shape up, is it? Some cakes simply takes longer to prepare than others, don't they? But it wouldn't be anyone's fault. It would simply be a cake that requires more ingredients, more mixing, more preparation, more time. Whatever length of time and number of treatments it might require will sooner or later have to be administered for you to eventually get completely and permanently well, just like baking the cake that requires a little more time and a little more ingredients. I'm not happy over your response thus far either, Mrs. Brown, but that just means we're going to have to work a little harder and keep a closer watch and make sure we're doing everything possible on every visit. As a matter of fact, last night I was discussing your case with another doctor, and he suggested we re-x-ray you from the other side, or you might say some other way, or whatever else might be done, and perhaps try a different approach to making a quicker correction of the cause of your condition, which we have already found. He mentioned 2 similar cases he'd had last fall that responded more quickly when he re-examined in this manner. I feel sure we should work together to see if more effective and faster methods of correction can be used. If you come in this afternoon or in the morning, we'll run this extra test on you and make no charge at all, Mrs. Brown. You've been a very good patient to work with, and Mrs. Brown and I don't want to fail to get results on you. Could you come in this afternoon, or would tomorrow morning be more convenient for you? When patients phone to break appointments, this same general approach is made. Remember that improper procedure positively presents problems and prevents paying patients' presence. What we don't use, we lose. We don't see things necessarily as they are, but as we are. And thus we're cutting this record for you to listen to again and again in order to keep this idea of how to handle this kind of lost appointments clearly in your mind, so it'll be brought forth every time you need to bring it forth. So take another look at missed or broken appointments, brown baggers, and see if patients are not losing valuable health by your oversight and you losing valuable income. Be selfish for the patient. You know, Whately said, "A man is called selfish not for pursuing his own good, but for neglecting his neighbor's good." The future of chiropractic and the future of millions of souls are in the hands of you and you and you. Don't lose by having a great many lost appointments. Follow the procedure we've outlined and embellish it with your own particular surroundings of practice where you are today.